One of the better movie directors of the past 2 decades is without doubt Christopher Nolan. This director made some amazing movies in his filmography. Let's take the time to look at his entire filmography. Hello guys, welcome back to a new ranking video by J Mayer. And this is gonna be another director's movie ranking video. It's been a while since I have done such a video. I've done this before with Quentin Tarantino, with Ben Affleck, and my most recent one was about the movies of James Gunn. But I haven't done this for 2 months now, I believe, so it was about time I was going to dive into another director's filmography. And 2 weeks ago, Oppenheimer came out, and this is the new movie directed by Christopher Nolan. So, this was about time to rank all the 12 movies directed by Christopher Nolan, from my weakest one till my favorite. Yes, Christopher Nolan. He is most certainly one of the best directors of the past 2 decades. This guy made some amazing movies. He has a very impressive filmography. He's already making movies since 1998 and he has not taken a break since now. He is making movies and very qualitative movies, I have to say. Now, he's a very popular movie director. He has a big fan base, with reason. Do I consider myself a Christopher Nolan fan? Not really. I like his work, I like him. I think he's a great movie director, he makes great movies. Especially the period from 2005 with Batman Begins till 2014 with Interstellar. That period, that was his prime. Then you could really consider me a Nolan boy, a Nolan fan. I was really big fan of Christopher Nolan back then. But in general, I would not consider myself a big fan of Christopher Nolan. He's certainly not among my 10 favorite movie directors. Maybe that's an unpopular opinion, but it's my opinion. Still, I think he's a great director, he makes great movies, but it's just his style doesn't really match with me. There are certain things I have noticed when watching the movies of Christopher Nolan. First, he really likes to play with time. His movies are mostly non-linear, non-chronologically, and he plays with time. So certain storylines are taking place in the movie, but not necessarily in the same time, but still they overlap in some way. That is what Christopher Nolan really likes to do. Sometimes it works, and when it works, it's really amazing. But it does not always work for me, and when it doesn't work, it can be annoying to watch the movie. I will talk about this later when I do the ranking. Second, certain of his movies doesn't always start that interesting or fascinating, but always stick to the end. When you are at the end, usually in a Nolan movie something will happen, some kind of twist that makes the whole movie interesting. Even the start that initially you didn't find that interesting at all, so he usually has impressive endings. And his third thing that I noticed in his filmography is that usually when you, at least in my experience, when you first watch a Nolan movie, you are maybe confused, you don't really get it, but the movie gets better if you rewatch it and rewatch it again. So his movies really need multiple viewings. But that's Christopher Nolan. And like I said, he made 12 movies. So this is gonna be my longest ranking video so far. So let's start with it. So at number 12, in my opinion, his weakest movie is actually Following from 1998. And this is actually his first movie. Most people think Memento is his first movie, That is true, but that is his first movie that he makes for a studio. He already made Following. This is a little independent movie, very short, that he made basically on his own. He released on his own with a very limited budget. But already in this movie you can see that he is a very talented director and what he's going to be known for. This movie is also very non-linear storytelling. And I think the movie really starts interesting. The first act was really fascinating. But in the middle, the story kinda loses me and they never found me back. But it's a nice little independent movie. But it's very simple, it's a start, so for me it's his weakest movie also. At number 11, we have Tenet. Yes, Tenet. I always describe this movie as his best and his worst movie. His best because in this movie he clearly wanted to reach for the stars. This movie is very ambitious, he has some big ideas. It looks very impressive what happens in this movie. So in that regard it is best because the things he wanted to do in this movie that he tried to do, they are impressive. But it is also his worst because he did not reach the stars with this movie. It's very ambitious, very impressive, but it's not that interesting and it's actually very confusing. I really don't get the movie. Especially that third act, when everything happens, I didn't know what was happening. I was really sitting in my couch watching this movie like, what's going on? I had no idea. And even the story was not really that captivating. Actually it was a bit boring, so yeah, good ideas, not the best execution. So that's why Tenet is very low on this ranking list. At number 10 we have Memento. Yes, Memento. I know this movie has some fans. I get it. It's a very interesting movie because this movie basically tells the story backwards. So it starts with the end and it ends with the start. So that's a very interesting way to tell a story. But at the same time, that way of telling a story is also his problem for me. Because if we tell a story backwards, it's very annoying to follow what is going on. Sometimes I was a bit frustrating watching this movie because this is not the way for me to tell a story actually. And this main character, he has amnesia, he always forgets in his short-term memory, and that is basically what this movie feels like. When we are at the new sequence, I already forgot what happened 2 sequences ago. Maybe that was the whole point of the movie, but it was frustrating for me. But this is a kind of movie that the ends makes the whole movie work, because the ending is very amazing. I really like the way how this movie ends, and this ending makes the movie worth the watch. But it has to come at number 10 for me. Number 9 might be a little shocker, and that is Oppenheimer. Yes, his new movie comes at number 9. And this may be a bit low, and I get it, but it's not a bad movie for me. I think it's one of Nolan's masterpieces, it's one of his best directed movies, especially that whole Trinity death scene in the movie. That might be Christopher Nolan's best directed scene ever. That was a very impressive work of art. And it's all masterful. Acting very impressive by Cillian Murphy, also by Robert Downey Jr. The acting is wonderful. It's masterful written. So it's a masterpiece. It's just not a masterpiece for me. Because, first of all, it's a very long movie. It's 3 hours, and at times, at least in my opinion, you can feel that length. And maybe that's because it's a very dialogue heavy movie. That's not a problem for me. Problem is that I did not really experience a lot of excitement in the dialogue. Usually dialogue movies has to bring the excitement, the tension in the way they bring the dialogue. And I was missing that in this movie. And it was it was not always interesting for me, and that has to do with the themes. It's about this making of this atomic bomb, also about the communism in that time. The themes did not really do it for me. And also, I think the movie had had a chaotic storytelling. Also here he plays with time, so there are multiple storylines taking place in different times, and they all overlaps. And for me that was sometimes really confusing and chaotic to follow this movie. So it did not really benefit my experience watching the movie. And also I don't feel like this is a really rewatchable movie for me. I think it's gonna take some years for me to put it up and watch it again, so not really a rewatchable movie. So that's why it's at number 9, even though it's a very masterful movie. At number 8 we have Insomnia. And Insomnia I really like. It's maybe not directed as good as Oppenheimer, because the editing is very sloppy, I think. He cuts a lot, and it's sometimes annoying, personally. But genre-wise, it's more my thing. It's a detective story, it's a psychological thriller taking place in Alaska. So about this murder investigation with this killer, this crazy killer, played excellent by Robin Williams. It's a very underrated role by him. He is very excellent in this movie. So all great things, and that is why I like it a bit more than Oppenheimer. It's more rewatchable for me. Also a little role by Catherine Isabelle, that was also very pleasant to see. At number 7 we have his war movie, and that is Dunkirk. After a first watch I had placed this very low, almost at the bottom, because I was not impressed by this movie at all, even though everything of this movie looks very impressive. I was a bit underwhelmed watching it the first time. But last week I watched it the second time. Like I said, Nolan movies get better watching it multiple times, and this is the case. I liked Dunkirk a lot more. The times he used in this movie are not as confusing. I actually get it now. Still, it's not my favorite. It's not among my favorite war movies. It's a movie that I appreciate more than I really adore. But still, a very well directed movie. One of his best. Now, the next 6 movies are actually what I consider his best work. Favorite movies of mine even. Those are all masterpieces. And at number 6 we have Batman Begins. This is his first Batman movie, the start of his Batman trilogy. And this was a very cool superhero movie. Even in the period that superhero movies are not as big as they are now. And Batman Begins is a great origin story. Almost as great as the first Spider-Man by Sam Raimi. It's on the same level. Batman Begins is an amazing movie, amazing villains, amazing world building. It does everything perfect for an origin story. And that is what I like Batman Begins. I like the other 2 movies by Nolan a bit more. They are more entertaining for me than Batman Begins, but still, great movie. At number 5 we have The Prestige. And I think this is the first movie of Nolan I ever seen, and I was really blown away the first time I saw this movie. The Prestige is about these 2 magicians. They were once friends, now they are each other rivals, and they go far to beat the other guy. And it's very entertaining, it's a very interesting movie. It was really fascinating, but especially that whole 3rd act when all the twists and turns are introduced to us, the prestige of the movie actually. That makes this whole movie amazing. And yeah, The Prestige, one of Nolan's best for sure. At number 4 we have what most people would consider his best over second best, and that is Inception. When Inception came out, I knew that this was a big movie. Everybody wanted to see Inception. And Inception is a piece of art. It's nothing seen before. It's amazing. Also a movie that took some watches for me to really appreciate it more and more. But each time I see this movie, I like it a bit more. It's a very interesting with his whole dream sequences, with his dream world, with these missions in dreams, and then they go dream into dream. It's a great science fiction movie. It's very entertaining. It's very cool, very nice idea, and it's executed to perfection. So Inception has to come at number 4. The next 3 are really my favorites of him. And my third pick might be surprising because it is The Dark Knight Rises, and usually people place this much lower, and I get it. It's maybe not his best movie that he directed. The third act especially is a bit sloppy, there are some plot holes, but still, this is a perfect conclusion of the Dark Knight trilogy. I love this movie. The villain Bane is amazing. The way they ended the Batman storyline is perfect. This is maybe the Alfred at his best, and there are so much things in this movie that I like. Especially what they do in Gotham in this movie was good. So I always love this movie, and I still loving this movie. The Dark Knight Rises my number 3. But obviously The Dark Knight at number 2 is the best Dark Knight movie. This is one of the best superhero movies ever made. This was an amazing movie, and it still is. Christian Bale is perfect as Batman. The Joker is the show stealer of this movie, no doubt. It's a really amazing movie, entertaining movie. It's a very clever written movie. And it's for sure one of Christopher Nolan's best movies. But my favorite is Interstellar. Yes, Interstellar. Interstellar is one of the best movies I have ever seen. It's visually stunning. It's perfectly acted, especially by Matthew McConaughey. There are some emotional scenes that really get to me. And the whole story is perfect, to save the world. And when I first saw the movie, I did not get the ending. That was a bit too much, but I get it now. And every time I watch this movie, I'm still amazed by how stunning this movie is. For me, this is absolutely Christopher Nolan's best movie. It's Interstellar. So guys, this was my ranking of all Christopher Nolan movies. I hope you enjoyed my ranking. Always be free to share your ranking in the comments below. Always subscribe to my channel if you want to see more videos of me in the future. And thanks for watching, and till the next time.